You've not heard anything from VeVe. You've not heard anything from Marvel. You've not heard anything from Disney. If anything, they're all staying quiet and building and building and building. This everybody's been upset because they haven't heard from David and Dan, and now you're seeing all these things rolling out, and you're like, oh, that's why. Like these guys are working so insanely hard and have their head down. And I feel like that's how this relationship is too.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the VeVeMagic podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest, VeVeMagic. She's probably the biggest Disney fan and expert in the VeVe community and overall a great person. In this conversation, we learn a lot from her. We learn about the Disney NFTs that she's been stacking, the legacy of SiliconSecure. We discuss how losing Disney, which also has Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Pixar, can be one of the biggest risks for VeVe. And we also talked about some potential utilities for the Disney NFTs that we have on the app. And last but not least, some ghost stories in Disneyland. This interview is jam-packed with so many insights that you do not want to miss. Also because VeVeMagic actually works for VeVe. She is a Discord moderator, so she has so many cool behind-the-scenes stories. They're just so much fun. Let's get to it. VeVeMagic, thank you very much for joining us today and all the great work that you do for the VeVe family, especially the Disneyland videos, the knowledge on different characters and the history of the company. And I know we've been planning for this conversation for a long time, and we are super excited to and very honored to finally talk to you and learn from you. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. And I'm really sorry it took me so long to get here. Life's been crazy the past couple of months, but I couldn't wait to make this happen. So we're here. Yay.
Yeah. And I know MisterV has a couple questions for you. So MisterV.
All right. VeVeMagic. So when did you take on this persona of, VeVeMagic, and to who or what would you accredit that to?
Yeah, so you guys and I are familiar with the VeVe Army. That's a Discord group, and that's where I actually started in the social media aspect of the VeVe community. And back then, I was known as Omi is my homie, and I was faceless. Everybody, I'd be like in conversation. There was never voice or video. We just text message in the group, and I'd get so many nice bro or cool bro, and I would giggle. I'd be like, they have no idea, and I actually kind of loved it. And I never planned on being seen. And I was having a conversation with Silicon about I think it was around the time that Golden Moments came out, and we were just talking on the phone. And I would listen to him in spaces, and he said, you got to come on a space. Like you have to, people need to hear this stuff. Like there's so much that that other people don't know, and you need to share it. And so it was, I want to say it was around after Christmas time. I guess that would have been 2022. Maybe it was earlier. Don't remember the exact time frame, but I went to my first space. I was actually laying low because of COVID. So I had free time. And I think our first space together was like 8-10 hours long, and I couldn't even talk the next day because I had a sore throat, sounded all raspy. And that's how it sort of started. And then he connected me with Chad of NFT Pirates, and he's like, bro, you got to have her on your channel. And I was really, really terrified. But we had done a couple of spaces together, and I remember my first space, I was physically shaking like a leaf, and my voice was shaky. That still happens sometimes. Like if I go into a VeVe official space, I get really nervous. But before I went on to Chad's channel, they both were like, Silicon mainly was like, you need a different name. Like you need something that represents like what you are and your passion and what you kind of like love in this space. And so we just bounced ideas off each other. I think we had like a group text with Chad, and we sort of go back and forth. We did a couple of calls, and all sorts of ideas were thrown out there. And I ended up coming up with the name and deciding on it. But they were like, oh yeah, that's great. Because I wanted it to be, you hear the name and you think Disney without it being Disney magic, or like without having, I didn't want the word Disney in there because I didn't want to at some point run into any copyright issues or anything like that. So I wanted to be very careful. Like, so I was thinking about that stuff in the beginning, but yeah, it just made sense. I heard when I put the two together, I'm like, it's perfect. It's VeVe and it's Disney. Boom. And there you go.
Very cool. Will, I think you wanted to touch on how on the influence
Yep.
as well that VeVeMagic has had.
Yeah, so you mentioned Silicon, he's a legend in the community. And there's one story that there was one very kind act that he did for me that really helped me to get to where I am today in terms of my VeVe content and those kind of things, and get to know people. So this is I want to tell a story as the context for the question, which is when I first started making VeVe content, I did not know anybody. I didn't have any friend who was using VeVe, and I know that I wanted to network and connect to people, but I didn't know anybody, and I did not have the huge collections that will get me into certain groups. Like some people have a lot of NFTs, some people like MisterV collects specimens NFTs, so they all kind of have their niche and their friend groups. I did not have anybody because I am a very small collector. So I learned about Silicon through an interview that Chad did with him, and he didn't even know about me. But during that interview, he mentioned the VeVe Discord group, the VeVe Army Discord group, and I wanted to be in a community, and both of Chad and Silicon are very credible guys. So I wanted to be in a group with them and start learning from people, because that's how you get better, and make friends. So I DM him. I was nobody at the time. I'm not anybody today, but I have, like some people know me and stuff. But back then I was nobody. And so I didn't expect him to respond. So I texted him, hey, I heard that you are in this VeVe Army Discord group. Can you help me to get in? And surprisingly, he reached out to me and he gave me the invitation. So I got in, and that's how I knew about you guys. That's how I met MisterV. That's how I started interacting with you, VeVeMagic, and Chad and other folks. And my first guests were Eddie Elite. And that's basically how I started. And then I interviewed Dylan and Groper B, and I met MisterV there. So we started talking, and therefore we created this podcast. And now we are talking to you. So he has a huge role in how I was able to, in helping me building this channel, and ultimately, collaborating with MisterV on this podcast. So he has a huge influence on me. And so my question for you is, how has Silicon influenced you in terms of VeVe and collecting in general?
I'm going to try and compose my thoughts and not lose it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, hearing your story is very touching. I'm still raw,
Yeah.
This is somebody that was my family member for almost 20 years. And, hearing people talk about his legacy and helping it live on, is very special to me. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah.
He, massive influence. He pushed me to be where I am. So I owe everything of where I'm sitting today because of him. I would not have been here had he not pushed me. And he pushed me on a daily basis, pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And he would just make me go after what I wanted. Instead of being passive, he would be like, no, you need to do this. You need to get out here and do this. And he would just totally push me out of my comfort zone, but still protect me. So it's like, I still felt safe with him. And in terms of collecting and all that too, I've just learned so much from him. I learned conviction and sticking to your conviction and your belief and your faith in something. Even when everybody second guesses you or says you're wrong, there's a lot of things that I believe in with this company and with this, with some of the collectibles. And you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, and that's okay. I'm still going to believe what I believe because I have my own reasons. And if you don't want to believe it, that's totally fine. But I've got enough strength and security in my own convictions to stand by that. And that is something that I have truly learned from him. So yeah, I just love hearing all these stories that people share with me. Like, I didn't know all that detail, but that's who he was. He wanted to help everybody get to where they wanted to be in the community as collectors. And just, he valued the friendships he created so much. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So today, like until today, do you what is your VeVe strategy, or what are some insights that you learn from him that help you to kind of craft your own collection? Or is it mostly like, oh, you have your own preference and you just base on that?
It's a little bit of both. I, started out really wanting like every single Disney piece because that was just like the OCD in me. I just like, I'm gonna have every set. And then it got to the point where I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to have every set. And I'm our personal lives come in and financial constraints go up and down, up and down. So I'm not able to do as much as I'd like. I'm, trying to go to all these meetups and stuff. I've been traveling a lot in the last 4 months. I think I've done 5 VeVe related community meetups, but that's more important to me than the collectibles because I already have a great collection. And everything now to this point is icing, and there's going to be some things that I have to have, but I'm happy with my collection, and I really want to foster the relationships that I have in this community. So I'm putting more of my finances in that respect. But there's things that I just like, and I collect them because I really like them. And then, there's certain Disney IP that I think is, maybe either really valuable or really undervalued. And, there's certain things that I would love to go in and stack right now that I think are going to, in my opinion, be heavy hitters at some point in time. I just can't right now, but if I get to the point where I can, I would love to go in and buy more of those things. And that's something that I learned from him, the stacking and DCA. And, I did do that in the beginning a little bit, and traded things off, in the bull run to be able to, buy golden moments or buy this and that. I've never cashed out. I don't even want to say how much money I put in the app, but, I want to keep building my collection, and there's certain things that I would love to stack more. I would just, need a money tree.
I know MisterV has a question, but I want to follow up on your own answer, which is, you mentioned how you have certain IPs or characters you want to stack. Can you review maybe 1 or 2 of them and why?
Yeah, so you had a question that was about like I'll kind of tie these together.
Yeah.
What are some of the like most nostalgic pieces for me? So, and that would be like things that I would look into. Some of them I would look into stacking. Some of them I just like because they are nostalgic. So Partners obviously is like my top dog. Like that is the definition of Disney. So nostalgia, boom. Steamboat Willie, the Sorcerer Mickey, Lion King, Aladdin, Tinkerbell, Oswald, Haunted Mansion, and the ride posters. I love the ride posters because that's like every time I go, I see not only the rides, but you walk under the tunnels and you see those ride posters there. So those are like some of my top favorite things. And then I have a couple of weird things that I like to stack for no particular reason. But yeah, those would be like my most nostalgic pieces and things that I would probably, if I could, want to get multiples of.
Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week I, MisterV, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VeVe content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it.
Just because I like them. That just feels like quintessential Disney. And like some of the princesses that we don't have yet, like those would be things I would be super into because, those are so much happened in the 90s, and a big demographic of our VeVe user base is sort of that bracket, right? And I think people that come in the future are also going to be somewhere in that bracket. And so, they're going to look through the app and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, they have this movie and this movie and this movie from my childhood. Like, wow, I want to collect these characters. I still have my plush from when I was a kid of Simba, or Scar. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about, is what I think, what resonates with me and what I think might resonate with other users and Disney fans.
Right. So it sounds like you are gravitated towards the older, more established characters,
Mhm.
right? So let's get to the investing perspective. What if you have a
Mhm.
friend who wants to invest into Disney NFTs? Would you recommend him or her to invest into the Oswald, the partner statue, or would you recommend him or her to invest into the newer characters? Because what I'm seeing from the VeVe community is that some people would want to make the safe bets and invest in the characters that have been around for almost a century, like Mickey Mouse, Minnie.
Mhm.
But there are some people who want to take a little bit more risk and invest into the newer characters, because nowadays your kids or MisterV's kids know more about these newer characters, and therefore when they grow up in maybe 5 or 10 years, those characters, the newer ones, will be in demand. So what do you think
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, honestly, when it comes to Disney IP, I think there are very few, if any, wrong moves, especially when you are, you know, looking at fan bases. It's like, take Stitch, for example. I'm not a huge fan of Stitch. I have the set. That's not something I've stacked, but that character has like a massive, massive fan base. So it's like, you know, if I would choose other things personally to go after first just because he's not my favorite, but if I met a Stitch fan, I would be like, oh boy, like you should go look at this. So it all depends on the person and like what is the most valuable to them, um because they want to have that connection too. Like sure, there's people that want to come in and invest, and so that, my strategy for them would be, not financial advice. um my top picks, if just anybody coming in into the app that wanted to have sort of the top dogs in Disney, for me, it's going to be the Golden Moment set because it's the first Disney IP. It's historical. It's the first officially licensed Disney NFTs on the blockchain. So to me, that is number one. And then my second go-to would be the Platinum Moments because it's a centennial celebration. So that is another historical set, which isn't complete yet. Who knows how many more we'll get. But to me, that is another really powerful and meaningful set because it is a once in a lifetime celebration of 100 years of a company. So I think that's really important. But then, yeah, I would just sort of see where their passion lies. You have kids. What's your kid's favorite character? What's your favorite character? I've stacked some of the Pixar stuff. I've stacked Lightning McQueen because that's a huge character. I've stacked Woody because that's a huge character, and those are FAs. If we ever get Sully, stacking, just because that's one of my favorite characters. If we had gotten Baymax without the suit, I would have stacked that because I love him as just the white big marshmallow squeezable thing. But I think I have one or two of the suit ones, but I wish it was like the regular Baymax because I love that one. So, but again, it just depends on what people are passionate about. So yeah, I guess I would always want to talk to the person and gauge their interest. If they're just purely financial, I would be like, get a couple of sets of Golden Moments, get a couple of sets of Platinum Moments, and maybe these few other sets. But if they are also a big Disney fan, I want to lead them where their heart is because they will never then feel like they made a wrong choice. If they bought something that they really love, they won't ever feel bad about it.
Yeah. All right. Mr. V?
It was kind of funny that you mentioned like how just kind of like circling back to what you were mentioning about Lilo and Stitch. They haven't released any new content for that character, but I want to share this. My wife, she likes the Stanley cups. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know if my camera picks it up, but
Put
she
it
Yeah, I can.
against
Yeah.
your chest.
Okay.
Oh,
Right
that's a good idea.
So she like knows how to paint these cups.
How cute.
there. Whoa.
Wow. That's amazing. She
She's
hand painted that?
yeah, she's
Wow.
she's really talented with like
Yeah.
art and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, like like a pretty old character, and they haven't released anything recently, but it still resonates to this day. and like it's just really impressive what sticks.
Yeah, ferocious fan base.
Yeah.
Stitch
So
fans.
yeah. So like speaking of fans and kind of like bringing people together, I want to talk on spaces on X. When I first started off like joining the community and everything, I was trying to figure out where to find information, and I was kind of like one of those people in the background listening on spaces, just seeing like what all these like bigger figures would talk about and what they'd share. And one of the first people that like had the courage, because like I'm okay with public speaking, but when it comes to like a space where I don't know anybody, it was kind of funny. And for me, but one of the first people I actually like started speaking to in spaces was Silicon. And like I wanted to kind of make it a point to be able to speak with him after kind of going a little bit back and forth on Twitter at the time. And he really did help me get a lot of courage to be able to speak in spaces and eventually do the interview where I pretty much doxed myself on camera with Will and Casey collections. And you know it's brought a lot of joy and knowledge by doing all of that. So in that same vein, I was listening to O'Malley in Spaces the other day, and one of his spaces, he shares recordings from the podcast My First Million. And like the speaker asks his guests this question of what sort of content do you digest? And I thought that was really interesting because it gives a lot of insight as to like, where's this person coming from? Where do they get their ideas? Who are they? Like, because you could tell a lot about a person based on like what kind of books they read, what kind of films they're interested in. And, you know, I think it brings a really cool dynamic to for that person. So I thought, why not ask here, VeVeMagic, what kind of content do you like to consume or digest outside of VeVe and maybe even Disney?
Yeah. So that's really interesting. People may not fully grasp how much time I spend on VeVe on a daily basis. I would probably venture to say 8 to 10 hours a day. Between having my own channel, TikTok, X, Instagram, Discord. I'm a mod on Discord. We have weekly meetings. I take part in, different activities in that Discord on a daily basis. I try to prepare things. Right now I've been working on trivia to engage the community. We've held certain events. The drop shows are for every single drop. I typically cannot make them because they happen during when I'm taking my kids to school. But I will try to drop in when I get back, which is usually around like 7:45 West Coast time. So I'll try to drop in for the last bit, and then I hang out with the community. I try to listen to spaces when I can. I really like to scroll the feed and see what people are saying, what's going on. When I can, I try to support other YouTube channels, drop into a live, hang out in the chat, say what's up to everybody. So I spend so much time with community engagement that I have very little time for consumption. And I do actually view that as consumption because I am staying up to date with what's going on, where people's heads are at, the latest news. I do a lot of, it's funny, I don't have a lot of followers on Instagram, which is fine. But I do a lot on Instagram. That's where I get a lot of my my Disney information. Oops, sorry. A lot of my Disney information. And I like to share that on my stories and stuff, or sometimes I'll take that and let people know via X. So that's where I sort of get my most up-to-date information, is just listening to all the people around me and then dissecting that the way that I will. But it's hard for me to take a lot of free time to read and catch up on the news and all that stuff, because I just spend so much time. It's a lot of time that I don't have time for much of anything else. and then I have a family to raise and a household to run, and I try to do stuff on the side, and I need to peel back a little bit and focus on that because I need to make some money.
Very cool. So kind of want to circle back and touch on the whole mod thing. How did you fall into that role? How'd you come across that, and what was the process like?
Yeah, so it was sort of two things. I've gone to almost every single event, and I have developed relationships with everybody that I met in the community as much as possible, including mods. When I've gone to the events, I've stuck very close to the booth because I don't go to Comic Cons to see everything. I go there for VeVe. Like I go there to be with VeVe too. Like that's my main goal. So I developed those relationships, and I don't think it's really a secret that I would love to be part of the company at some point. And there's also, I do have a niche, right? I do have a specific lane, and the Disney fan base isn't just me. There's a lot of Disney fans on the app, and the Discord wanted to have a channel to focus on having a place for the Disney fans to connect and share when they're at the parks, and share the collectibles they're into, and just anything and everything. And so I just sort of fit that role. So it was sort of a mutual kind of coming together that I developed the relationships and established them, and they said, you're a hard worker and you love this community and you'd be great as a Disney focused mod. How would you like to be part of it? And of course, absolutely.
So like at what point, so what does that process, or what do the logistics entail being?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you first say like, yes, I would like to be one, you become a clubhouse mod. And that's basically for you to learn the ropes, to figure out Discord, because it's not super easy to navigate if you've never used it, to show your kind of like commitment and that you really want to be there. Like I could say, yeah, I want to be a mod, and then just pop smoke for a month. And they're like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. So you have a trial period before you get anything. And that's typically like 3 months. It's just whatever feels right to the person in charge. And when they feel like, okay, this is going to fit, this is going to work out, then you become an official mod. And yeah, we have weekly meetings. There's different sectors. If you want to be focused on community, if you want to be focused on security, there's like different places that you can, roles you can fill. You can try to do all those things. I personally can't. I'm more community centric focused. But I do have to give the mod team a massive shout out because they all work really, really hard. People have no idea. It's a lot of work. I always feel bad because I want to be doing more. I just like can't, but because like, I hold myself to the standard of my peers and or above, right? Like I want to be the best I can be. And I just feel like they knock everything out of the park, and they are they just are so passionate and work so hard that I feel like I'm like a slacker. And so I try my best, but I can't applaud them enough. And, we've become, our own family within the community. We have our meetings, and we will talk and what's going on. One of our fellow mods, he just got engaged yesterday. So we're in our mod chat, congratulating him. And, and so we've become our own family. And, when I'm going through things, with what happened with Silicon, everybody reached out. And so we've really become close. When we go to these events, we work the events together. And so, I'm really happy with the relationships and friendships that I've made. And I hope a lot of these guys aren't, forward facing. I'm really the only public person, for lack of a better word, as a mod. But they deserve a lot of light because they're awesome at what they do, and they love the community so much. So
how many mods are there, and do you work in shift? Like, do you have like a fixed time frame that you are in charge of certain Discord groups or whatever?
Yeah, some of them have like because some of these people, a lot of them have other, full-time jobs. So they'll say that they're available from such time to such time. We have a calendar. And or they'll tag team, like somebody always tries to be in a voice chat, and if somebody's busy, they'll say, hey, there's a voice chat going on. Can somebody else step in for me? I can't be there right now. And I'm not exactly sure how many mods there are. It's not a ton, and if somebody decides that they aren't able to do the role anymore, then they may phase out, and slowly somebody new comes in. We want to make sure that we have the right number to, you don't want 50 mods for a Discord that doesn't need that many. So we try to fit how, what the demand is, and I think it's the perfect fit. And then as the Discord grows and as the community grows, then they may have to bring more on, or so. But yeah, it works really well.
So switching topic to Disney, I have a question about the speculations that the Disney NFTs might bring. So some people, not many, just some, speculate that there might be, Disney park benefits for partner statue holders or golden moment set holders, or other benefits can include like a free pass to go to the park for a day or a fast pass. What do you think about that? So that's the first part. And if Disney were to give out these benefits, would it be fair for those Disney fans who don't know about NFTs?
So I've always been one of the biggest proponents of utility, and Comics and Crypto and I did, I think Metaverse Life may have been on that, I don't remember, a while back, did this sort of like PSA to Disney about utility and why it would be great and why it would be beneficial. And as time has gone on, we've learned more about like the legality issues, and it's just not as clear cut and simple as we'd all like. I am hopeful that something can still happen. I don't know that it's going to be what everybody wants, but the fact that they're figuring out now this crafting, to me, is an open door to things that they could do. I mean, who's to say that they couldn't have a crafting event? And there's a plenty of lead time, but if you hold all the golden moments, you could craft it into something. And that's not, it's not changing what you bought. It's just letting you have an additional benefit. That I think there could be a way around the legal issues there. I think they're trying, like, I feel they are, and I don't know because I'm not in those meetings, but I'm still hopeful that something could happen. What if it's just stuff you can do with your NFTs when you're in the parks? Say you come in and you hold all the sets and you scan some sort of QR code every time you're there, and you're able to redeem a free Disney NFT as a reward. So I feel like there's other things that they could do that could still give a lot of value to holders. It's just comes down to the whole legal aspect of it. So fingers crossed, and in terms of the fairness, I was thinking about this question. One, life's not fair. Two, there's a lot of, different groups and things within Disney. There's obviously Club 33, which most people that visit the parks don't even know exists. Is it fair that only a certain group of people get to be Club 33 members? You have to like know the right person, or you have to be in an elite group of people, and this list is closed. And, is it fair that they get to get this benefit, this benefit, this benefit? And is it fair that they get to have all these special events? No, but that's how it is, right? And that's been around for a very long time. And there's DVC, Disney Vacation Club, that comes with perks. There's the Disney credit cards, where if you have a credit card, you get special meet and greets when you're at the parks. You get discounts on things.
Wow.
Annual passes. There's Castaway Club. So, is it fair that when you and I are going to book a cruise, I'm part of Castaway Club, so I get to get in and do everything earlier than you because I've been on a cruise before. You didn't even know this existed, but so you're booking a cruise and you're going to have to wait. And I've already booked, the fancy restaurant, and I've booked the character meet and greets. And by the time you get there, they're sold out. Is that fair? So you see what I mean? Like, that's just how it works. And it's not my fault that some of these people weren't early into NFTs and looked for it, just like there's people that many years ago knew about Club 33 and they had the right means or resources, all these different, other benefits that you can do, being a pass holder. It all comes with being a well-researched person and being rewarded for something that you've invested in and put your money towards. So, all these things that I mentioned, those all take money. You pay to play. I pay just for myself. I pay $133 every single month for my annual pass, whether I go to the park or not. And that doesn't include my family. And, all of us that bought Golden Moments, some of us paid a lot more than others, but, I don't see anything wrong with there being benefits. And there's always the marketplace, right? So anybody that found out, wait, there's this whole club, there's this Golden Moments, and they get to do this, they get to do that. Well, go in the marketplace and join the club.
Yeah. So speaking to you really opened up my mind into the complexity of Disney sort of like customer relationship management, because they have so many programs running at the same time. For me, I've only been to the Disney World in Orlando and maybe one more in Hong Kong. So I don't know much about all those things that are happening for different groups of customers. But you mentioning all of these programs sounds pretty incredible, because they have to take care of the NFT groups. They have to take care of like the OG Disney fans, those with Club 33, and then the cruises as well. So you mentioned that you pay like $100 something every month to have that annual pass, and that means you can go into the park, any day.
No, that is
no?
just for Disneyland.
Okay.
And you used to go whenever you want, but after COVID, they one, restructured their passes, and two, they restructured the going system. So like for instance, I've been trying to book next Friday for like the last 2 weeks, and it's been sold out for me every time I look, because they do give priority to people buying tickets. So that is the one thing that a lot of pass holders are really upset about, is that we pay this monthly fee, and yet people that, like, if you were to buy a ticket, you could book next Friday, no problem. We sort of get like a smaller batch of reservations held for us.
Right.
Yeah, so I have to reserve. So, I couldn't just necessarily just say, hey, let's go to Disneyland right now. Like, I have to look at the calendar. I have to see if there's availability. I have to make a reservation. And then if it's available, I can go. So yeah, it's pretty complex. They have a lot of complex systems, and they're circling back real quick to their vacation club. The vacation club, when you decide you want to be a member, there's a starting fee and then there's a monthly fee, and it allows you allotted points, and you use it. It's like a timeshare, and you can go to Disneyland Hotel, you can go to the Grand, you can go to Disney World, you can go to Alani, and I think there's I'm not a member, but I know there's members in the community. But when you do that, you pick a home base. And I have a family member who became a DVC member, and they wanted their home base to be California because they're Californians, but it was sold out. So their home base is actually Alani. Is that fair? They didn't, but they didn't become a member right in the beginning. So they missed the window of opportunity to have Disneyland as their home base.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So forgive me for sounding like an idiot, but for most people, like myself included, I would assume that you would go to Disneyland maybe once every 6 months, or once a year, or once every other year, for example.
Makes me itchy thinking about it.
Yeah. But then you go very often. How often do you go to Disneyland?
Man, I go as often as I can. The problem is I am an hour and a half with no traffic, and I'm in the LA area. So on average, it takes me 2 hours to get down there, and hour and a half, hour 45 minutes to get home, depending on my travel. I tend to leave at like the butt crack of dawn to avoid traffic, and then I wait until rush hour is over to come back. So it's a very, very long day. If I live closer, I would be there minimum once a week. I would probably say average twice a month. But like right now, I'm dying to get back. The last time I went was September 24th. 4th for the Halloween party, and I haven't been back because I've been traveling. I haven't been able to, and it's like it's killing
What do
me.
you
Like
even do when you go that often? Like for me, again, apologize for sounding like an idiot. I would go. So, for example, the Disney park in Anaheim, I've never been, but I would imagine if I were to go, maybe it will go maybe maximum 3 times, and I'll be like, okay, this is it. I've been to most of it. I've seen most of it. I don't have to go again. Put me in the shoes of a real Disney fan like you. What
yeah.
draws you to the park, and what makes you go once every 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's just it's truly an escape for me. Like when I go
Mm.
there, I feel like I tend to be in my head a lot and always thinking about what do I need to do, what's on my plate, all these things, my constant lists, right? And it can make a person crazy. And when I go there, I am able to completely shelve all that. Like I don't think about it at all, unless I'm doing content there, and then that like takes up a huge part of my day. Um, but it just is a place for me to relax and unwind. It's like a sanctuary. When I get there early in the morning, there's nobody there usually, so I like to knock out like 4 or 5 rides in the first 2 hours. So
Wow.
yeah, and I always go left. Everybody has their way to go. I always go Pirates or Mansion. I like to hit Thunder. Like I have this whole like shtick of where the rides that I like to go to. I always started at Disneyland, and then I skip over to the other park, California Adventure. And once it gets busy, I like to have a couple of drinks and people watch, or catch, depending on the weather. If it's really hot out, I like to do some of the indoor shows. I have some really cute indoor shows that are really immersive. There's one with Crush the turtle, and you're in this room that's like a big aquarium, and he swims up, and there is somebody voicing him, but it sounds just like him, and he interacts and lets the audience ask questions, and he'll like pick on the adults and stuff. So I always hide because I don't want to be picked on. um, but the kids love it, so it's like gives the kids something to do. Or there's a park in California Adventure, and I will just go sit up against a rock and let my kids go and play. They know the place like the back of their hand, and I'll just like look at my social media and just chill and just hang out. Like it's a vacation for me when I go. Like there's always something to do. There's always something maybe you haven't experienced. There's still things that I haven't experienced after all these years. So it just makes me feel alive and happy.
That's awesome. Now I totally get it, because when I went to the Disney World in Orlando, that was my first time being there. And I really enjoyed the fact that with just a Disney wristband, I can order food. Well, on the app, but like, get to my hotel room
So
in the
easy.
park, and then go to different parks within the Disney World area. So that's really awesome. And so I want
The other
to,
thing is the
yeah,
other
go
thing
on.
that people don't understand, that this may help you relate a little bit more. Part of the reason that I have an annual pass is that so I can just have a day like that. There's days where I will go on maybe 1 or 2 rides, and the rest of the time I'm just either like shopping or walking around or catching shows. But the beauty of an annual pass is I don't feel like I have to get it done. You hear about families that like it was a nightmare because they try to get everything done in one day, or they go for a week to Disney World and every single park is open to close, and they're exhausted. They have a great time, but they're exhausted. That's the great thing about having an annual pass is I don't ever feel like I have to get something done unless there's something I really want to see, and that's my focus for that day. And so that also has an impact on how I view the park versus somebody that only goes once a year. Like I don't have to get it all done. I very rarely stay till fireworks and stuff. I like to get out of there before it gets crazy. So
Got it. Mr. V?
No, it's just like I haven't been to the one in California yet. I've only been to the one in Florida, and like they have like 4 or 5 different parks.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping to be able to fly out to California to be able to experience that park, because I know that it's, from my understanding, it's each one has its own unique offerings. And like I heard that it's like a Marvel section and a Star Wars section, and I haven't seen any of that stuff. And I know I'm missing out. I've been missing out, and I really have to make that effort. I've never been to California for that matter. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know. Shame on me.
Well, let me know when you come this way.
Absolutely.
He has a beautiful Disney NFT collection. Can I talk about the poster, Mr. V? Or
Oh
like
yeah,
the okay.
yeah, sure.
At one time, he has the what was that poster that all 4 or 5 of them have 5 of them have mint 1313,
Address.
which is the address. And you want to talk about like maybe 1 or 2 more, Mr. V, that you have like 7 golden moments or something with the same mint, right?
Yeah, I'm up to 8 golden moments with the same edition number. I just got the Aladdin's lamp to match with
Oh, I
Aladdin
saw that.
and Genie, and I've got to say that's probably one of my nicer sets. I mean, like that's my MO, right? To edition match and all of that, but that's probably one of my coolest ones, and I'm very very excited because they didn't all the editions didn't sell out from the store yet, and so
Right. So it could have been hard.
yeah, yeah. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
And
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. And there's like a bunch more that I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So I have a question for you, continuing on the Disney topic, and this is going to be a pretty long question, but pretty important. So personally, I think VeVe's biggest risk to their business would be losing Disney, because up to this point, they are responsible for 100% comic book revenue, and the major licenses like Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney Studio. Do you agree with that? And what can VeVe and the community do to keep this partnership stronger?
Um, so I agree and disagree
Okay.
because I agree that that would be the biggest risk. I disagree in viewing it as a risk. I personally don't feel that there's any risk there. I think that relationship is extremely solid, and I think it's only building more and more. And I think there's going to be more and more announcements that come out and more things that just solidify that bond. I mean, even, the Louis Vuitton partnership that is again with Marvel. And, I don't know how that partnership worked out. I don't know if Marvel was like, hey, jump in on this. Like,
Mm.
Who knows how that happened? But if that's something they did, that's a big deal. Or, or that Louis Vuitton said, hey, Marvel, we want to do this, but we really want to get into this NFT sector. Do you guys have experience with this? Like, I'd love to know how that whole conversation started. Or was it David that came up with the idea himself? Who knows? Like, I would love to have been a fly on the wall to figure out how that whole thing came to be. You've got the crafting from both Marvel and Disney. You have Disney, it's almost like they're in competition. Who's going to do it better, right? Like we're brothers, but I feel like there's like the sibling rivalry, right? Like who's going to up the ante? And who knows? Maybe we're going to start seeing that from Pixar and Star Wars as well. Like there's the speculation. I have no clue, but it's just every single week there is a Disney and or Marvel drop. You haven't seen a slowdown. You haven't seen anything other than a bear market and people complaining to indicate a weakness in that relationship. You've not heard anything from VeVe. You've not heard anything from Marvel. You've not heard anything from Disney. If anything, they're all staying quiet and building and building and building. Everybody's been upset because they haven't heard from David and Dan. And now you're seeing all these things rolling out and you're like, oh, that's why. Like these guys are working so insanely hard and have their head down, and I feel like that's how this relationship is too. I feel like they just all have their heads down and they're working and building. And so for me, I don't feel any sort of weakness in that partnership. And I'm excited to see where it goes because I hope that they just continue innovating and figuring out how they can propel what they're doing to the next level. And I don't know. I feel like there's something special going on there. I don't know what it is, but something feels like it's brewing. And don't take my word on that. That's just how I personally feel. So with that said, I think there's a reason why they aren't doing more because they are building so much. I don't know that they're ready because we saw what happened with Golden Moments. It took one tweet to bring in thousands of new users from Disney specifically. And so, if they did this full-fledged marketing thing, that's going to happen. And maybe they're waiting for the perfect moment to flip the switch. Maybe they'll never do that. It's not like, Disney does commercials promoting Funko. Disney doesn't do spotlights for Loungefly. Yes, they sell their products and give them the license, but they promote their parks, they promote their media, and they promote their specific merchandise that they create. They aren't out there trying to help all these other licensors sell their stuff. So it's not on Disney to do that. And so I just think it's still a general awareness thing that needs to happen. What I would love to see is that maybe we can get into the phygital with Disney and Marvel. And so you go to the park and you pick up some toy or a plush or whatever, and you can redeem it for a collectible, or whether it's a Funko that's sold at the parks. But I would love to see them get more into that, because that you've got millions of people visiting these parks every year, and they're going to pick up these toys and they can read and find out. So that's a way to get people in. The app, when you download the app to go to the parks, there's games and things you can play. If there's at some point where we are integrated with NFTs, where we can, have them with the app doing stuff in the parks or something, or, if there's when you walk in, there's some button you press on your app that, helps you redeem a new NFT as a reward. Those are all things, right, that can get us to the next level. So I hope that that's things that they're considering. And those are the kind of things. I don't think it needs to be a Super Bowl commercial. I don't think we need to be on the Sphere in Vegas. I just think it just needs to be a natural progression of making the next steps, which we have been seeing in what has been going on with VeVe, and how each drop gets better and better and better. You're getting crafting, we're getting digital comics finally. Are we going to be able to get those from Marvel at some point? That would be amazing. And that's sort of, this relationship does put the pressure on Marvel a little bit, right? Like, hey, we got these people that are doing digitals and the community loves it. Come on, guys. So I feel like all of these things are working together to make next steps, but there's a lot going on, right? How much can they process at a time? Yeah.
Speaking of things in the pipeline, and I know we didn't really add this to the list of questions, but what are your thoughts on the Disney Animator's desk?
I don't know.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, I have no alpha. I promise I have no alpha. If I did, I'd have probably if it was something huge, I'd probably have 5 sets of pencils ready to go.
But I guess my question to you is, being a big Disney fan, what background did you have? What background knowledge did you have of that historical part of the company? They've come out with physical Disney 100 collections of all sorts of things, whether it be nostalgic movies and celebrating different characters. That Disney's coming out with, I can't even keep up with it. They did an interesting thing where they also have a whole collection called, I think it's part of the Eras collection, and it's stuff specifically tied to Walt Disney and the Walt Disney Company and the early stages. I guess maybe he had one like this. My daughter was obsessed with this magnifying glass, and it's this heavy metal magnifying glass that has a brass handle, and then obviously the glass, but around it is brass Mickey ears. I have had it in my backgrounds before. There's the sign from Walt Disney Studios that says all the different directions you can go, and that sign actually exists on the lot. There's the water tower that when you're at Disney Studios, you can see Walt Disney Company. So there's all these old, cornerstone things about the Disney Company. One of them is, I forget the word, the circular portion of the animator's desk, because they obviously can't sell a whole desk. The portion that lights up and it spins, that is one of the collectibles. It's a physical collectible for Disney 100. So I remember seeing that and being that's interesting. Also, when you go into either park, there's an art store. And in the art stores, there are animators' desks. And you can order to have whatever character you want. They have thousands in a book that you pick. And you can watch an animator
draw your picture for you on the spot. And it was funny. So I went with Brown Mamba, who runs our VeVe Army Discord. We went a few weeks ago, and we're standing there watching her, and he was like taking video because he's like, oh my gosh, it's the actual animator's desk. Like he was kind of geeking out, right? He's like, these things exist. And then he as she's drawing, he goes, excuse me, ma'am, what is this called? And she said, this is an animation desk. Like, you know, it's not like, oh, this is where I draw. Like they have a specific title. And so this desk still exists in the park, and it's part of history. So yeah, I feel speculative, but here's two things. I feel speculative because it is such a bizarre thing. Like it's just such a random piece to create. Like, how does this fit? So that's what makes me think that there's something more. But at the same time, Disney does like to be very black and white about what they're giving us, right? So if they're giving us something and that is all that if it does more, then it's like, oh, but you guys didn't state that it does more. So that's where I think maybe it is just a desk, is because they aren't stating that it's anything other than that. So the interesting thing here is if it does do more, that's opening the door, right? Because they didn't put it black and white. They somehow got around all the legal red tape to give us something. So that's where I'm like hopeful that it's something more, because that means something bigger to me. You know, you read that you're getting a desk, then you find out that it does all this stuff and they didn't specifically mention that. What else can they do? What else can they do without specifically mentioning it? But that again is why I think it could also just be a desk, because there is so much legality, right? So we'll find out. I kind of want to have two sets of pencils. I only have one set. I kind of want to have two because I want to like keep the pencils and burn a set, but I don't know if I'll get there.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because having never been to the park and never seeing that section of the park as well, that's some great insight. So thank you.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, have you ever tried to convince your other Disney friends to get into the physical collectible space, like try out VeVe? And if you have, what was the general reaction? Was there any friction, or it was pretty easy to just get them to try out VeVe?
I would say it's 50-50. I have several friends that are in there, but they're mainly, and I feel part of it is like because of not being involved in the community. I think the more that you're involved in the community, the more passionate you are about the project as a whole, because you love it, because you love the community and you love sharing this with everybody. So it makes you want to be involved more and want to collect more. So I have friends that are more passive collectors. Like I will alert them like, hey, this is one you might want to go for. This is a big deal or whatever. And they'll be like, okay, I haven't been on in a couple of months. Like I'll check it out. That's probably the vast majority of like my friends that are on the app, is they're just kind of like along for the ride, but because they're not engrossed in it, it's just like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. And then there are others that it's just not their thing, or they don't understand it. And because they don't understand it, like there's one person that watches a lot of the stuff that I do, and they're a huge Disney fan. And I haven't asked them specifically, like, have you gotten into the app, or, what do you think about it? But because they are such a huge fan, I have to believe they're very curious. I mean, they watch everything. So I intend to have that conversation with them. But at the same time, like, it's not my style to like push something on somebody. So it's like, if I tell you about it and it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Like, that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's just, and there's people that just still don't get it. They're like, that's cool, but I don't get it.
Right. So I have maybe 2 or 3 more questions.
Okay.
So last year, the Splash Mountain, is that in Anaheim or is that in Orlando?
Not anymore.
Okay, but that's in Anaheim, right?
In both parks.
Oh,
yeah.
In both parks.
Yeah.
So like some people sold the Splash Mountain water on eBay, and some even bought it, because I looked at like
It's
the
so
eBay
degen.
history. Is that like is that an accepted thing within the within the Disney fan community, or
No,
is
but I'm
that
not
too extreme?
surprised. No,
VeVe is
like
not going to come out with a like a digital bottle of water of the water from the ride.
I would die. I would collect that just because it's hysterical.
That's the
um,
next what's it called? April Fool's Day drop, right?
all right. Oh, dude, that'd be savage. um, the no, but Disney fans are crazy. I have a kick myself story about that. So Splash is one of my favorite rides, and there was this sweatshirt that I came off the ride once. I think it was pre-COVID, and I wanted to get it, and it said everything is satisfactual, and it was in the font. Like it was so cute, but I was trying to be money conscious, and I didn't get it. And then COVID happened. Oh, it was also tied to Splash Mountain. Part of the retheming issue was Splash Mountain went through a huge give me the right word, controversy over what the movie stood for and everything, and that's part of the reason that it got rethemed. So when that controversy happened, like right after I went, and they yanked all the merch, and like those sweatshirts were selling. Not that I would just wanted to have it because I love the sweatshirt, but those sweatshirts were reselling for like $300, $400, $500.
Wow.
Because you couldn't find them anymore. So and you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff people do. You have people every year that take ashes from their loved ones and they spread them on Pirates of the Caribbean in the water, or they'll spread them in the Haunted Mansion.
Wow.
Crazy stuff goes down. Disney fans are nuts. Yeah. So like that's why I'm like, the water does not surprise me at all. I've heard and seen way worse.
Give us one more crazy story that Disney fan do, or like just like doesn't have to be crazy, just interesting.
Oh shoot, I'm bad at like the top of my head. There's this one video I saw that you can find on YouTube where there's like ghost sightings, and there was one where the camera was on Haunted Mansion and the whole walkway. Oh, I get chills. We were talking about stuff earlier before we started filming. It's like back to that. And it's walking along the water, the rivers of America, and the silhouette looks like Walt Disney, and he's exiting Haunted Mansion and walking along the rivers of America. And it is crazy. And there's other things where you can see people like exiting the ride of Space Mountain. And I know people that have worked at the parks, and one person in particular has like stories. Like she saw a woman in like a bridal gown, and like not like a ghost. Like, so there's like all kinds of crazy stories. Yeah, some of the Disney history stuff's really fun.
Wow. Mr. V, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, like, the whole thing with the splash, it's called Splash Mountain, right? Interesting that they pulled they yanked the ride, or the title of the ride, right? Because they just kind of rebranded they're
going to retheme it. They're going to have it like completely different. I mean, it's still going to be the same concept, right? Like they're not going to completely restrict. You're going to still have like the big drop, but it's going to be completely different inside.
Yeah, I found that to be pretty interesting because on Disney Plus, whenever there's something that's pretty old and there's something that could be pretty controversial when it comes to like touching on different cultures and ethnicity and things like that, they have the disclaimer right before. So I'm wondering, like, where did they draw the line with that? And not to I guess dive too deep into it or overthink it, but I just found that to be pretty interesting that that's the way they approach that, as opposed to with the Disney Plus videos.
Right.
But they were a lot more not proactive, a lot more aggressive with addressing the same thing, but through the physical park side of things.
It's twofold, right? So what's interesting is like Peter Pan is one of those films that they put the disclaimer on. We still have the Peter Pan ride at Disneyland, and there is a scene with Indians. And I feel like that's hard for them to touch because Peter Pan is one of the most beloved and nostalgic rides in the entire Disneyland park, and people would probably lose their minds. Like you would have picketers, like you would have people chain themselves to like the gates of Disneyland, like to take this ride down. And it is part of the oldest rides in the park, on the other side of the castle in Fantasyland. The difference, though, is there was a huge uproar. I think they got a ton of complaints about the ride. And the thing that they can always sort of lean and fall back on is that Walt Disney's dream for Disneyland is that it would never be complete, and it would always be innovating and moving forward. And so like there's been a lot of rethemings. Pirates of the Caribbean is still the same ride, but there's a scene inside that ride that people did not like because it was degrading towards women and people's beliefs. So they rethemed that. And so they could have, I guess, switched out the music or something, but like that whole ride, Splash Mountain, really, that whole ride is that song and from that film. And but that's how it makes sense. Like is that Disneyland is always supposed to be moving forward and doing the next thing and staying relevant and not futuristic, but you know what I mean? Like just one step ahead. So I think that's why it's different than the films, is because that is following Walt's vision of what he wanted for the parks.
Yeah, that's some great context for the people listening to this, because I definitely didn't have a clue about that side of the vision for the park. And so that gives me a lot of clarity and context. So it's
really interesting too. Like, I think a lot of these decisions are really, really hard. I feel like that one came at a time when things were so tense in our country that they felt they had to take a stand and had to make a decision. I mean, they rethemed. You're always going to have somebody that's not happy with something you do, like in life, in everything, with the Disney company, everywhere you go. An example is they rethemed the Snow White ride, and beautiful job on it. That's a really old ride, but they did a really good job of like making it colorful and bright and better of a story. That used to be labeled the scariest ride on in Disneyland because it was dark and creepy, and you like scary in like a creepy way, not like terror, but like just like creeped out, right? And they made it so it just really transported you to the film and made you feel like you lived through the whole story in this like 2-minute ride. But at the end, he kisses her and she wakes up, and it's a beautiful scene with all these lights in the trees and imagery, and it's very well done. And there were people in an uproar that wanted it to go away because she did not ask to be kissed. So that's just an example. And I'm not going to have an opinion on it one way or the other, but that's just an example that like Disney is like sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't. And they're literally following the story of the film. And it's a film from many, many years ago, but you have the people like, yeah, but today is today and we should change this. So it's like, they really try their best, but they're never going to make everybody happy. They're just not.
I think that's very similar to, and not to go on too much of a tangent, but I think that's very similar to some of the classic sitcoms that we have, like The Office, the US version. A lot of the kind of humor that's in that show, if it was recorded today, it would not fly whatsoever. Right? It's very off-color kind of humor today, like if it was to be recorded. But like when it was recorded, it was acceptable, or not acceptable, but more less under the spotlight, let's say.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand where you're coming from with that story with the.
It's interesting though, right?
Yeah. There's a lot to process with that.
Yeah. So the last topic that I want to talk about is New York Comic Con, and all three of us are coming. You are helping VeVe managing the booth, right? Is that correct?
So I could only afford to go in for 2 days. So I'm going to be in Thursday afternoon, out Saturday afternoon, but I plan on being at the booth Friday afternoon.
Okay, got it.
For that afternoon shift.
Got it. Is there anything that you can talk about, like maybe just hype people up, just to get people to get more collectors to join and actually go to the event?
Yeah. So I'm number one really excited about the new partnership with the guys from the Addiction comic. Over the past couple of days, Corey's wife, Heather, has held a couple of really great informational spaces that I co-hosted with her. And the guys came in and talked to us. And they remind me, I'm actually going to have them on my channel sometime after Comic-Con. They remind me so much of Dan and David because they're so lovely. They're so passionate. You can tell they work their butts off and they're so grateful. They already feel like they're part of the community. They are literally going through, people are tweeting at them and whatever, Xing them. And they're literally going and responding to every single comment. And like, he's actually probably right now in spaces. One of the guys is probably in spaces right now. Like they are loving connecting with the community. And that is huge. Like, so I'm really looking forward to meeting them. They're going to come to the parties. They're going to have their own booth. I'm sure they'll come by and stop by the VeVe booth. I want to get my hands on these physical comics. I think people are going to be able to look forward to some new opportunities with the VeVe booths, maybe a couple of things that they haven't seen before that we're trying to do to attract people to the booth and you know, be able to sort of capture their attention and then tell them about VeVe. And so I think that'll be really exciting to see. It's really great that VeVe's got some really good time slots for speaking on stage. You know, there'll be giveaways on stage per usual. So they have a lot going on. And, you know, Alex has been hinting that there's more to be revealed. There's more to come. I don't know what that is. But I'm really excited to see that. And I feel like some of the stuff they've already left us with has been pretty awesome. A huge comic coming, some major X-Men characters, like the drops are going to be really cool. And it's like, if this is already, you know, this new digital partnership, the Funko being involved with the party, this party sounds like it's going to be crazy good.
Yeah. Party sounds huge.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like,
are you coming to the party?
Heck yeah, I'm going to go to the party.
on Thursday, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
yeah, I'm gonna land, go to my hotel, get cleaned up, and go right to the party.
Nice.
But if we already know about all these things that are going on, and all these in themselves are really huge, and they haven't like given us that there's still more, I can't imagine that they'd be like, oh yeah, and then this, and it's like some random drop or something that's like not that great. I feel like whatever they're saving has got to be just as big, if not bigger, than all these other things they've been announcing. So I want to know what it is.
Yeah. I and MisterV are already planning on how we're gonna do all of that, because we both have, well, I only have ticket to New York Comic Con on Thursday, but he has the 4 days ticket. But
Nice.
on Thursday, our plan is to.
I mean, like I held off until the last second to buy the tickets, and I found them for like $320 on for anyone who's listening to this. If they manage to listen to this before the event, Ticket Smarter has them for $320 before fees.
That's pretty good. I
Wow,
heard
that's a great
a
deal.
lot more than that.
Yeah, so just a heads up if anyone is still interested.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I heard that there's like 100 editions of the 9.8 CDG graded comic book of the Addiction. So we're gonna try and get in early to get that. And also we're planning to go to Grimaldi's, which is the pizza place.
Yeah.
So we are super excited to also meet you as well, and also Dan and David. This is gonna be our first any Comic-Con ever. Like we have never been to any Comic-Con, so super
You guys
excited.
are gonna love it.
Yeah.
They're super addicting. Like I want to be at every single event. Like,
okay.
it's more so, you know, again, it's like more so because of just like being around all these people and like real life. Like, you know, you can have a great time talking to each other on a screen, but to like just like be in each other's presence and company and having fun together in the same place. It's just like, it's really special. And like you guys will understand what I mean. Like, and then you feel like addicted. You're like, I have to be at the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah. MisterV, do you have any last question for VeVeMagic?
No, it's I'm all out of questions. But it really has been a pleasure to be able to speak with you, on camera. Really grateful for your time and the energy that you put into it, to make it that much more of an enjoyable experience for people like Will and myself. And can't wait to meet in person.
Yeah. Thank you, VeVeMagic, and we look forward to meeting you in just a couple of days.
Thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. I rambled, but that's what happens when you get me talking about Disney and VeVe.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and Omi related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.